This time a week ago, Biden was still president. Now, less than a week later, 1,500 troops at the border, thousands of arrests made. Have you also been struck by just how quickly this took off for President Trump?
Yeah, I knew this was going to be coming because I knew there was going to be a national emergency declared at the southwest border. And with that President Trump was going to bring a whole of government approach. We were only going to start to see tougher policies within the United States, tougher diplomacy, but he's also expanding the law enforcement agencies that can participate in these immigration operations to include the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and on. And it's also going to include strengthening that southwest border with the use of the military instrument. And I'll tell you, we could see as many as 10,000 between the southwest border and northern border to send that message of deterrence.
Yeah. And what about the safety and security of our troops who are now there? What do you see as being the biggest risks for them as they look to crack down on this migrant surge, especially as, Mills just brought up the Tren de Aragua members that have been taken into custody, and also as Mexico warns of cartels planning explosives?
Yeah, the one thing I'm keeping my eye on are the cartels, especially after being designated foreign terrorist organizations. My biggest fear is that there's an escalation between the United States and Mexico based on cross-border violence, and that is the cartels against United States troops. That would have catastrophic consequences, not only for the cartels, but also for the independence of Mexico. I think if that were to happen, you would see the gloves come off. And I think you'd see one last offer from President Trump for Mexico to work with us to diminish the cartel's influence and operational power down there. But if Mexico decides not to, I think you could see unilateral action down there, especially if it was the result of injury or death of U.S. troops.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. I'm here in Chicago. We were all, kind of caught off guard by seeing Tom Homan here in Chicago this weekend, observing these immigration arrests on Sunday. And sources telling News Nation that 5 Tren de Aragua members were among those taken into custody. Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson tweeting that Chicago police were not involved in these arrests. So, Charles, how does that affect the Fed's crackdown in places where local police are not helping or assisting them?
Yeah, great question. Ideally, you want to see everyone working together. You've heard Tom Homan speak about the fact that they'd rather be within the jails so they can focus on those criminal threats within Chicago and other places like other sanctuary cities where they're not putting forth the cooperation that ICE is requesting. And what that does is that widens the aperture of the operations because now ICE is having to send more federal agents into sanctuary cities. And what this does is this is bringing up more collateral arrests of people that may not be violent criminals within the U.S., however, in the country illegally. So really, I think it's a detriment what Illinois and other sanctuary states are doing because it's actually making those that are in the country that are law-abiding, the very ones that they say they're defending, more out to be deported because they're going to be that collateral results as ICE is surging through cities looking for these dangerous criminals. Yeah. Let them into the jails, let ICE do what they want to do, and remove those criminals and deport them.
I'll be talking to a Chicago alderman later on in the show. I'm curious as to what kind of opposition we really saw on the ground here. But, Charles, you look at the numbers, and they're staggering. Sunday alone, nearly 1,000 arrests. Can this kind of daily pace, be kept up for the next 4 years? And is the problem fixed sometime before then, if it is?
Yeah, I know. The problem is we're talking about a number that nobody really truly knows what it is, especially when you include those 2+ million gotaways that have made their way into the country and other legal pathways that have been exploited by the Biden administration. So we don't know what number we're talking about. We know that the gangs have infiltrated the country. We know that suspected terrorists have infiltrated the country. So we've got to get these people out as they run across them in these cities. Some will be targeted, some will be incidental. And this is where your law enforcement question is really important. This is where the force multiplier of working cooperatively with state and local law enforcement comes into play. Because in sanctuary cities, these violent criminals are going to be encountered every day for other, say, traffic violations or other criminal violations. And the fact that they're not turned over to ICE, but released back out on the street is going to make this take a lot longer of time.
Yeah, and it's only week 2.